Welcome back, Dean Obeidallah Show. We're live here Wednesday, March 26th. People on hold, stick around. We're going to take some calls later on, but right now, very happy to have on our friend Thom Hartmann, host of the Thom Hartmann program, which I'm sure you all listen to from noon to 3 p.m. Eastern time, right here on this very channel. New York Times bestselling author, and of course his Substack, the Hartmann Report. I always recommend it to you. It's great. I read it every day. Go to hartmannreport.com, and I'm going to be on Tom's show tomorrow, 12:30 Eastern time. The Home and Home series. Look forward to chatting with you. Thom, welcome back, my friend. How are you?
I'm fine, Dean, and thanks for having me back. By the way, I owe you and your listeners an apology.
Why? What happened?
I want to clean something up here. We were talking, the last time we talked was, it seems like it was a month or so ago. It was quite a while ago, and it was right after Joy Reid got bounced off MSNBC. And I was just assuming, like good faith, that MSNBC was doing that based on ratings. And so I made some comment like, maybe a Black person is having a challenge getting ratings in that day part or something like that. um, you know, and it turns out it had nothing to do with ratings. But Chris
No.
Hayes, the white guy who precedes her, has lower ratings than she did. And I think, frankly, I'm not so sure it had anything to do with race. I think it had to do with her politics. She was, an outspoken progressive. I've been on her program a number of times. I believe you have been. And,
Sure.
she's just like one of the really great journalists out there and great anchors. So my apologies for assuming that MSNBC was
I don't
just,
remember that. I
yeah,
don't remember you saying that, but you've cleaned it up, whatever it was. I
yeah,
didn't
I
remember you
remember
saying
it
that.
well because
But
I
yeah, her
after the
ratings were fine. And she was defeating CNN, Aaron Burnett show every night in the demographic and in the ratings.
yeah.
But, there's bigger things in the corporate media world, as we know. And while her ratings were the number one on the network, if she was number one on the network, they'd let her get away with probably almost anything. She was sort of in the middle. And they're like, okay, we'll get someone else. And it's unfortunate. I think she's a great journalist. In fact, I was texting with her recently. I'm trying to get her onto the show here, but she's not doing a lot of media right now because she's still dealing with her contract at NBC. She's under a contract for a year with them still. So we'll
Yeah,
see when
'cause I
that gets
reached out to
done.
her
But
too and didn't hear back. So yeah, that's good to know.
well, after those comments you made, of course not. That's what I'm kidding. So, so Thom, Tom, we're talking Signalgate, my friend. What
Yeah.
is your reaction and how dangerous is this? And what do you want to share just about your take on it all?
Well, I think this demonstrates a couple of things. Number one, it demonstrates that everybody who is saying that Hegseth and um, well, basically the whole crowd, actually. I'm not sure that there was a single person on that entire Signal thing. But, you know, at the very least, Hegseth was dramatically unqualified. I don't know if you heard the hearing today where one of the Democratic Congress people asked, Ratcliffe, the DN or the CIA director, um, is that his title? I think so. In any
He
case,
is
he said,
CIA director.
yeah, he said, do you think that Hegseth was drunk? And the guy was like, how dare you ask that? That's an offensive question. I'm sorry, the guy's a friggin' alcoholic and brags about it in public. He goes on Fox News with a bottle in his hand and drinks out of it on television. I mean, it's not an irrational question. But anyhow, Tulsi Gabbard and Pete Hegseth are both, clearly out of their leagues and not
Mm-hmm.
taking their positions seriously and not engaging with the people around them within their agencies who should be constraining them and tutoring them essentially. And
Right.
that is a great danger to America and frankly to the world, given the stakes of America, what happens if America doesn't do well, in holding back Russian and Chinese expansionism.
I played that clip earlier. It was Congressman Gomez asking both Tulsi Gabbard and John Ratcliffe about had Hegseth been drinking before he released that classified post, that classified information on it. And Tulsi was just like, I don't know who Tulsi Gabbard is, so I'm not sure who you're asking questions to. Like she denied everything. She's like, I'm not familiar with Tulsi Gabbard, so thank you for asking her a question. We'll get back to you. But Radcliffe was like, I'm offended by that. It's like, shut up. The guy has look. If the guy had went for help, and it was years ago, then it would be an unfair dig. But that's
Yeah.
not the kind of person Pete Hegseth is. So, we were talking before you came on a little bit about it is more likely that Jeffrey Goldberg gets prosecuted and punished than it is anybody in the Trump administration is held accountable for this, unless there's some political point where Trump's like, okay, I'm going to cut this person loose. But I don't see that unless the person personally slights Trump. So do you think it's more likely Jeffrey Goldberg, they find something, the Espionage Act, the IRS audit at something to punish him for this?
I suspect probably they'll probably wait 6 months and then, quietly go after him. And then when he talks about it in public, it won't be a big deal because the story has, everything has moved on. But yeah, I fully expect they'll figure out a way to punish him. I mean,
This is
this
the
is a
America that we live in.
vengeance-driven
Do
administration.
you think anybody resigns from this?
No, no. You can get away with anything in a Trump administration except defying Trump. I mean, which is the classic hallmark of an authoritarian, essentially dictatorship. This is how dictators roll. In fact, they embrace incompetence because it strengthens them. If you've got competent people running institutions, those institutions can defy the dear leader. If you've got incompetent people running institutions, then dear leader's power is expanded.
I think, to paraphrase from the movie Love Story, being the Trump administration means never have to say you're sorry.
Yeah.
Like it's the idea of like you are free to do whatever you want, you get away with it. Look, I mean, the bottom line is the person responsible is Donald Trump. It's not Pete Hegseth. It's not John Radcliffe or Tulsi Gabbard. Donald Trump surrounded himself with incompetent, mediocre, pampered people who would just be loyalists. And this is what you get. You have a situation where we're lucky nobody died here. We're lucky I mean, people died in Yemen. We know a girlfriend of the guy they were going after, and we don't know what evidence they had that he was a target or not, but even assuming he was a bad guy, they talked about collapsing an entire building. And the guy's girlfriend was in there. We don't know who else was killed. And they're like thumbs up and fist bump emoji and fire and that kind of stuff. It is beyond incompetent. It's like kids playing a video game, not real life. That's what's just remarkable here.
Yeah, it's high school boys kind of stuff. And it's a tragedy that America has come to this. It really is.
What was your reaction to some of the Democratic senators, Mark Warner, Mark Kelly a little bit, Bennett especially, Ossoff, really taking the fight to the intelligence people yesterday? It almost felt like the 2028 race for president was starting to heat up there. That's what I really felt like I was watching a little bit, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I was waiting for someone to call for the impeachment of Trump. I mean,
Oh,
if Biden had done something like this, there would be 35 impeachment resolutions in the House of Representatives right now, and senators would be climbing over themselves to brag about how they were going to vote for removal. And not a single Democrat. I mean, Al Green has, and there's a few other people, but out of the senators, not a word, not a peep. They're not holding Trump to account for this, and that troubles me. It concerns me. Yeah, go after Pete Hegseth. Sure, he's an easy target. The guy's he's a dry drunk, or maybe he's a drunk. Who knows? But
right.
he's not the guy in charge. The guy in charge is the one who we really should be going after. And I was just surprised by how there was a lot of strong words, but not very few of them were directed toward Trump, and that frankly shocked me.
And it's interesting. Like there's the detachment that Trump wasn't really responsible for this. He's not on the chain. They refer to him as POTUS, like some, grandfather figure or some guy who's above it all. When this is all him, this is his people. This is what they're doing what he wants. And I don't think Trump cares about details. I don't know what he cares about, to be honest. Revenge, vengeance, retribution. He cares about that, going after law firms. It's unbelievable, going after judges. And we'll see how it plays out. I'm chatting with Thom Hartmann. Tom, what is when you talk to listeners in the last few weeks, what is their reaction about the Democratic leadership? I mean, are anybody calling in and going like, I'm just not going to do this anymore. I'm not going to be engaged as a Democrat if they're not going to fight hard enough? Or is it more pragmatic approach that, at some point we're going to see leaders? There are some who are good fighters, but we'll see others emerge as the 2028, 2026 campaigns start to heat up. What's your sense?
Well, I suspect, like you, I'm hearing all those things, but a couple of weeks ago, it was like, where is the fight? I mean, I wrote an op-ed calling for Chuck Schumer to step down as the leader of the Senate Democrats. That was well received.
Mm-hmm.
Since then, though, you're seeing, not from Schumer, but from other Democrats, some spunk. And this new campaign to go into Republican districts, which our old buddy Mark Pocan, he's been on my show every other Wednesday for, geez, 8 years, I think, maybe, or more.
Wow. He's been on every other Wednesday for 8 years. He's been on your show.
Yeah,
That's remarkable.
yeah, certainly in that neighborhood. Yeah, maybe a little longer, maybe a little shorter, but in that neighborhood. And in fact, we call it Middays with Mark. We branded it. And now Ro Khanna's on every other week. He does Fridays and Mark does Wednesdays every other week. So pretty much every week, or at least 3 times a month, we get a member of Congress taking calls for an hour. But it was Pocan who started this, and he started it like a decade ago. Going when Paul Ryan, in fact, he was on my show about it a couple of times because he was going into Paul Ryan's district, which was the next district over from him, Janesville, Wisconsin, and doing town halls because Paul Ryan refused to do town halls when he was Speaker of the House. And so this has been around for a while, but it's a hell of a technique. It's a very, very effective strategy, and it's working well. I'm curious your thoughts, Dean, on this 3.5%, thing. These social scientists have said that when 3.5% of a population engages in a mass movement, it actually alters, public perception of the situation and alters, political realities. I would suggest that the experience in Belarus belies that. More than 3.5% of the population was out in the streets in Minsk, and Lukashenko just shot at them.
Right.
And there's been other examples. Israel, even right now, I'm not sure if it's hit 3.5%, but I'd be surprised if it hasn't, the anti-Netanyahu demonstrations. But a lot of people are putting a lot of stock in this and hoping that particularly this April 5th thing, turns out 3.5% of the American population, which would be what, around 11 million people, I think. I'm curious your thoughts on all that.
I don't know if 3.5%, if that number is ironclad in terms of percentage. I get the bigger point though. As people get more and more active, it becomes contagious. That's part of it. People start seeing things differently. It's why I write for my article for my Substack, and it ends up being the most popular article I write each week is profiles of punching Trump in the face. And that's what I call it. It's not resistance doesn't matter. I want you to punch Trump in the face, not literally, of course, but the point of punching Trump in the face, as people know who listen to the show, it's the idea of winning the media narrative fight. It's about knocking him off the game, his game, and having us define it. And we might lose 4 days out of 7, but if we win a few days, we're winning. And if people will stand up, it's great. And some people I certainly amplified this week was Bernie Sanders, your buddy, longtime friend of yours, Bernie, and AOC joining him for a few of the rallies, having 34,000 people, the biggest rally ever from Bernie in the history. And I played some clips on Monday or Tuesday. I talked about on the show the week these people, and also I even highlight those in Canada who are in the government standing up, Mark Carney and Charlie Angus and others standing up to Trump. But I want to get your take on Bernie and AOC because look, that's a growing movement. And I was on MSNBC Saturday, and the corporate media has no clue what's going on because they don't talk to our base, right? They don't have the privilege of that, and maybe they don't even want to. Oh, what's this fight between moderates and liberals in the party? That doesn't exist. It's between fighters and those who want to get along. It's between fighters and corporate Democrats, let's say. But no one's calling here and going, why can't Democrats talk about Medicare for all more? It's about why can't Democrats take the fight to Trump more? That's what I hear every day. And it's not moderate, it's not progressive, it's fight, fight, fight. So look, Bernie and AOC are tapping into something. Do you think, I don't think it's just a progressive thing. I mean, I played some of their clips. It's about fighting back versus Trump. That's a big part of this.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. But I think it's also larger than that. Back 8 years ago, it was 2016, 8 years ago. No, that was like 9 years ago. Louise and I lived in a boat in Washington, D.C. at the Capitol Yacht Club. We were just one row over from Joe Manchin.
Wow.
And a good percentage of the people who live on boats down there, it's a liveaboard community. It's actually a cheap way to live in DC, by the way. But a good percentage of the people who lived on those boats were military guys, mostly Coast Guard and Navy. But they were active duty or ex-military. And there was a little clubhouse, and you get to know people. And there was a bunch of people that I knew this was the 2016 primary, who were gung-ho for Trump, or were thinking about Trump, but they were gung-ho for Bernie. These guys, lifelong Republicans, right? military members, gung-ho for Bernie, and solidly for Bernie. And every single one of them, and I know these people, every single one of them voted for Trump when Bernie was kicked out of the primary, when Hillary replaced him. And there is no doubt in my mind that the message that Bernie has been pitching, that for 11 years he pitched on my show every single Friday for a full hour, that message that Bernie has been pitching since, I mean, he started on my show in 2003 out of my living room in Vermont, taking listeners every Friday. There's no doubt in my mind that message is the essential American message, that message is at the core of America, which is, put the people first. You can't have a middle class without government intervention in the marketplace. Middle classes don't magically appear. In fact, if you want to have a hands-off government approach, the government that you're going to end up with, or the society that you're going to end up with, is going to look like the one that Charles Dickens wrote about in Christmas Carol, where you've only got a little tiny middle class, 2, 3, 4%, and most people are in the working poor. And Bernie had been calling for, Medicare for all and free college education and strengthening Social Security and all these, just basic things, all of which poll better than 70%, most of which poll better than 80% right across the board. And so I don't think that this is some new phenomenon. I don't think it has to do with the fact that Bernie and AOC are fighting back. I think it's much deeper, much larger, much broader than that. And it's that the message that they are delivering, in addition to fight, and save our democracy, but the core message that they're delivering, the issue-based message that they have been delivering for their entire political careers, is one that resonates with the majority of Americans, including probably a majority of Republican voters, if they hear the message without the filter of Fox News around it.
I agree with you 100%. But the last time I had Senator Sanders on was probably about a month ago. Like maybe a few times a year he comes on. And he came on, I'm like, you were right. The oligarchy's here. You predicted it. How do you feel? And he's laughing. He goes, it is. This is it. This is the oligarchy. I've told you. And so look, this is a guy who's been warning us, like the British are coming. He's like, the oligarchs are coming, and they're here now. They have an inordinate amount of power. He talks about getting big money out of politics all the time. That polls remarkably well on the right and the left. And there are people on the right who I say, you don't like George Soros's money in politics? Good, neither do I. Let's get it all out. No more billionaires' money in politics. Let's all the people have the power. I'm fine with that. We can fight out in even playing field. Look at Elon Musk in Wisconsin. He's dumped $20 million in that Supreme Court race so he can buy a Supreme Court justice like the Gilded Age. And by the time it's done, it might be 25 million. He's literally going to buy a Supreme Court justice if and I hope that the Democrats and the people who don't want oligarchy, even some Republicans who don't like Musk, maybe not vote. They might not vote for the liberal Crawford, but I hope they don't vote for the MAGA guy who actually said, I'm going to be part of Trump's team. You're supposed to be a justice on the Supreme Court, not supposed to be part of Trump's team. That's not what you're running for. This is unbelievable. But Musk is there throwing money, making it rain.
Yeah, and Judge Crawford is saying, I'm not going to tell you how I'm going to vote. I'm going to take each case by, I'm a judge, damn it. I'm not a political optimist, which is the right thing to say. God bless her. How about, instead of no more billionaire money in politics, how about no more billionaires? I mean, France has, I believe it's 3%. There's several European countries that have 1%. A couple have less than 1% annual tax on wealth over a certain amount. If you've got more than $500 million, you pay 3% of it every year into the government and that sort of thing. It slowly whittles down these massive estates. They've got real estate taxes. And keep in mind, that was Republican Teddy Roosevelt's baby, the estate tax here in the United States. I used to have a website, nobillionaires.com. I don't know what happened to it. I let it go.
I remember that. Yeah.
Somebody probably has it. But I made this argument that billionaires are actually destructive to society, that, after somebody has $999 million, that should be it. There should be 100% tax on every bit of wealth that they acquire after that. And I just think that billionaires are a plague upon our country, and a danger to us, actually.
Look, I think they are. To me, I've never been upset with that. As if they make it fairly, they got to pay fair taxes. It's about the unfair influence in politics that I want to ban. That's really my focus. Because banning billionaires, I think, is a much harder lift. To be honest, because
huge, if not impossible.
That's a challenge, right?
Yeah,
but I think limiting money in politics is challenging, but it's possible. Go ahead. What'd
Look
you
at
say?
the studies. Go to Richard Wilkinson and Kate Pickett. They wrote a couple of books. The Spirit Level is their most recent book. The one before that was titled Why Inequality Matters. They're with the British think tank. And
Mhm.
they have done these studies showing that the more unequal a society is, the more just this whole list of about 30 social ills you have, from higher crime rates to higher violence to higher spousal abuse to higher levels of teenage pregnancy to higher levels of drug
Sure.
addiction. I mean, you just go down literally any social ill you can define gets exacerbated or increased when the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. And the less unequal a society is, the less likely they are to experience those kinds of crises. And you saw the World Happiness Index came out last week, and we weren't even in the top 20. I mean, this is in part why, because we are so unequal, and that's the main motivation for me in saying no billionaires.
I had on Monday Erica Payne, the founder and president of Patriotic Millionaires. And
Mm-hmm.
so they're trying to get, it's very shrewd. Like they believe in it. She's, progressive, but I also think it's a way of keeping the barbarians at the gate. Like, no, they're going to tax us. We want to be taxed, that kind of stuff, where the people don't have the pitchforks. Like, no, they're the good ones. It's okay. There's Musk. Let's go get him. That kind of stuff. So I think it's a smart strategic move if you're a millionaire. And what are the chances of Republicans and Democrats are going to get together to actually grotesquely raise prices to really make sure you pay your fair share? It's unlikely. There are enough corporate Democrats that are not going to let that happen.
Yes.
And so that's the world we live in, Tom. I mean, it's a frustrating thing here. All right, last couple of things before I'll let you go, because Thom Hartmann, I'm sure you listen to all day. And let's see, what's a good one topic here? Okay, upset win yesterday in Pennsylvania. I'm going to cover it more on the show tomorrow or Friday. James Malone wins a district there that Trump won by 15 points in November. It's a district, last time Democrats won this was in the 1970s. The closest they came since then was in 2006. They lost by 26,000 votes, but they won yesterday, a special election
Trump
in this
carried that
district.
by
There's no
15
Elon
points.
Musk money. Yeah, there was no Elon Musk money involved. It was just organic, under the radar type of thing. And next week we have two races. We got the Supreme Court race in Wisconsin. We have the two Democrats in Florida. I had them both on, Josh Reel and Gay Vollemont. Josh,
Yeah.
by the way, is Muslim, and
Oh, I
being
didn't know
smeared
that.
by his opponent. Yeah, he's getting smeared by his opponent, Randy Fine, who's an absolute
Oh my
bigot,
God.
calling him Jihad Josh and stuff. Josh converted because he married to a woman who was Muslim, and he converted to Islam years ago. And I don't think it's that much of
Got a name
his
that's
identity
better
right
than
now. He's
that's interesting.
but to Randy Fine, who's a scumbag, he's just smearing him as a terrorist and all this kind of stuff. We could have I hope we win in Wisconsin. I hope there's an upset in one of those districts in Florida. But what if there's no upset, but the Republicans won in those districts by 30 points? What if it's the type of thing where Democrats only lose by 4 or 5? Do you think that's enough of a media narrative win to get us some press about momentum on our side?
I'm not sure. I think if anything, what it'll do is increase the amount of money that Elon Musk is cranking into politics. There's little doubt that if Musk hadn't put $200-300 million into Trump's campaign at the last minute, the way that he did, and flipped X, and turned X into an all Trump all the time, mouthpiece, that Trump would not be president. And so it's I don't know that that race in Pennsylvania, the key to the whole thing, to understanding the whole thing, is that there was no oligarch money in that race on either side.
Right,
And,
right. It was just
and
like a normal race.
right, but once you get the oligarch money in there, then all bets are off, and that's the problem. And
Yeah,
so
in Wisconsin, Musk on the right, they actually have a little bit more money than Judge Crawford, but even though it's 20 million by Elon Musk, it's not that big of a gap because tons of money have come in from wealthy Democrats as well. And that doesn't get as much coverage. I was doing research today on it. And she is down a few million. But you would think if Elon Musk is throwing 20 in, like if Musk isn't there, she's raised like between the PACs that are helping her and her own money, like 20 million something dollars. So the gap isn't that big, but it's just obscene, the amount of money. It's just outrageous. There's that much money for a Supreme Court justice race in
well,
Wisconsin, which whoever wins controls the court, and they're going to redistrict congressional seats, perhaps.
Yeah, and how do you even spend that much money in a little state like Wisconsin? I mean, it's not like it's New York or Florida. There's a handful of media markets. Yeah, it's wild stuff. Welcome to the oligarchy, Dean. Welcome to
This
the
is we welcome. We should redo the Guns N' Roses song. Welcome to the jungle. We'll do Welcome to the Oligarchy.
We
We'll
did
have
one
Michael in the
for
Bronx
Bernie
sing.
it sounds like the Beatles Dr. Pepper's band, only it's
Sure.
welcome to the Bernie anti-oligarchy tour. And
Wow.
yeah, I'll have to get a
I,
copy.
I think it's great. Bernie's having a huge turnout. He's really excited. He was saying, I've run for president. I never had 34,000 people at any
Yeah.
event. He was actually pretty excited about it. So, last thing, I want to touch on your article. Dear GOP, you'll never wash the stench of Trump off you or your party. Never. So, share a little bit about this. And at the end there, does it matter? Do you think they want to wash the stench of Trump off them?
I think some do. I think Mitt Romney and maybe even George W. Bush are a little worried or concerned or whatever. But I think the racist base. I mean, basically, what Trump has done is he's reinvented the Klan, as MAGA. And someday sociologists will be looking back, going, "Oh yeah, you had the Klan, and then you had the MAGA." And then, so no, I don't think so. And the article was just basically a long litany of all the ways that,
Mhm.
horrors of Donald Trump, from his personal horrors, cheating on all his wives, claiming that he's a Christian while he's not, he's clearly not, to his wannabe dictator stuff, to 30,000 lies in his first term, and now he started up again. I'm astonished, by the way, that every press conference doesn't, after every press conference, the media is not coming out and going, well, here's a list of lies. I mean, they were doing that for a while during his first term, but
Right.
they've just given up on it. I mean, which is so unfortunate. So, it was every now and then, and this, Dean, every now and then you've just got to write a piece or do a piece on the radio that just is cathartic, it just get it out.
I I think there are things we talk about. Perhaps you do the same thing on your show for your own sanity. I
Yeah,
mean, honestly, just because that if we don't call out the hypocrisy or the shamelessness of the right, then it gets normalized and it's okay and it's not okay. And the fact that Donald Trump was never held accountable for January 6th has been one of the things that everyone who listens to the show knows it drove me crazy in the time of Biden. And it continues. And yesterday I was talking about the Tesla dealerships, how you can draw a straight line between Donald Trump normalizing political violence and the Tesla dealership violence, assuming it actually is people doing it for a political agenda. Well, they saw Trump do it for January 6th. They saw him walk free. They saw him pardon his terrorists. And he is engaged and embraced violence overall. There's a point where the people just go, well, if they can do it, why can't we? And that's what happens. And so that's what concerns me. That's going to build over time where we're not going to be able to turn the clock back on violence not being acceptable. Because on our side, you might have some, and I'm against political violence, but you might have some going, look what they're doing. How come we can't do that?
yeah,
And it's a
no,
hard argument.
yeah, it is, Trump set a terrible precedent on so many different levels. I do think with the Tesla violence that's probably. I suspect that's more, if you've got a large enough movement, you're always going to have a few crazies in it. Um,
Sure.
so, I mean, I saw that back in the 60s with the Weather Underground. Um, so I don't know. We'll see. We'll
Well,
see how it shakes out.
we'll see. Well, Tom, I want to thank you for coming on. Sign up for Tom's new Substack newsletter. Go to the Hartman Report, just hartmanreport.com. Sign up for mine as well, the Dean's Report. And tomorrow I will have the privilege of being on Tom's show at 12:30 p.m. Eastern time. I look forward to chatting with you about my articles, your article, whatever it
There you
is,
go.
whatever's going on.
Yeah,
Who knows what Jeffrey Goldberg will drop tomorrow? It'll be something fun,
indeed.
I'm sure.
Indeed.
Thanks, Tom.